Oh, not yet? Oh, sorry.
So, ready?
No.
No, not yet. Yes, now.
I can read it again. I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on December 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m. My name is Linda Lukovsky, and I'm chair of the school committee. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. A reminder that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for our unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families in the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners, students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The next item is the chairperson's remarks. I just want to say that I attended the Frozen performance, and that was absolutely amazing. I was sitting next to a family that had 3 kids, and one of the students went to our elementary school, and the other 2 were cousins. And every time something was going on, he'll go, wait, you got to see this, you got to see this. So it was just exciting to see that these kids were brought up to this performance, and it really showed how much they were enthralled by it. Sitting there, I was just proud watching these students, and the production was just amazing. And for us to be the only school in Massachusetts to be able to show this is just a testament to Natalie, our new performing arts director. So I just wanted to say how great it was. The next item is Student of the Month, and I'm going to hand this over to Erin.
Thanks. Student of the Month is the best part of our evening, and we really do enjoy welcoming the nominations in and being able to select somebody to represent the school. With the new school year, I wanted to just share with you a little bit about how it was established. So Student of the Month was established in 2019 by the school committee to honor exemplary students. Nominations are collected throughout the year from staff members at all 5 schools. Nominations are made through 5 categories: service to fellow students, teachers, or the community, dedication, determination, and persistence in the face of obstacles, attitude toward learning, determination, high achievement in academics, athletics, or performing arts, significant improvement in athletic, academics, and performing arts. The selections are made by the chair of the school committee, the superintendent, and 1 member of the policy and advocacy committee. It is my pleasure to welcome the Student of the Month, Laura Zarnowski. She was nominated by Craig Kemp. He's our new band director. Congratulations, Laura, and could you both please come up? And I would like Mr. Kemp to tell us why you nominated Laura.
All right, it's green now, so hopefully everyone can hear me. So today it's my pleasure to stand before you to celebrate the outstanding achievements of a remarkable individual who's consistently demonstrates excellence in various facets of her school life. Today we shine the spotlight on Laura. To begin, let's applaud Laura for her unwavering commitment to academic excellence. Her dedication to her studies has not only resulted in exceptional achievements, but Laura has shown us that with hard work, perseverance, and high standards, academic success is not only attainable, but truly commendable. Laura is not just a scholar, she's a dynamic force in our school sports arena as well. As a key player on the Triton Viking volleyball team, Laura's contributions have been nothing short of remarkable. Not only does she exhibit exceptional skill on the court, but her leadership qualities motivate her teammates to reach new heights. Laura's commitment to the team's success has become an integral part of our school's proud sports legacy. Yet Laura's impact extends beyond the volleyball court. She's taken the initiative to coordinate the pep band for senior volleyball night, creating an electrifying atmosphere that fosters school spirit. Her commitment to enhancing school events and promoting inclusivity is a testament to her leadership skills and dedication to the school community. And let's not forget Laura's passion for the arts. As a dedicated musician, she's generously given her time and talents to our school's music programs. Laura's involvement in organizing pep band performances at other athletic teams' senior nights showcases her commitment to celebrating the achievements of her peers. Her volunteer work with the music library not only contributes to the school's musical endeavors, but highlights her dedication to maintaining and improving our valuable resources. In conclusion, Laura embodies the essence of a well-rounded student, a shining example of what we strive to cultivate in our school community. Today, as we recognize her achievements in academics, athletics, leadership, and the arts, we not only honor Laura's dedication, but also inspire others to follow in her footsteps. Let us celebrate the value of hard work, commitment, and active involvement in our school community. Laura, thank you for being an inspiration to us all, and congratulations on your well-deserved recognition. So let's give Laura a round of applause. Congratulations.
The next item is oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes longer with the permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the committee? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains multiple donations tonight. I'd like to thank Ray Caseko for his donation of $2,500 to the middle school for the 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip, and of a 55-inch TV with mount valued at $680 for the high school REACH program, and to the Triton Educational Foundation for the donation of $5,000 for a network server upgrade. There are no out-of-state or overnight field trips included in the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Next item is new business. Would any members like to raise items for inclusion on a future agenda? Seeing none. Moving on to the Student Services update, I'd like to welcome Director of Student Services, Shannon Nolan, to provide an update on recent developments in student services.
Thank you. So I won't read through this. I'll give you a quick synopsis summary of what we've been. It's the main things that we've been working on this year, and it's mostly under the special education area of my job. So, as you know, Massachusetts has started to implement a new IEP. There are districts this school year who have implemented it. Most of the districts are implementing it next school year. So we've started training staff on it. We've had 2 trainings so far. we were able to apply for a grant through the department, and we received $22,000 through that grant. So the money for the grant will be used for PD, for paying the trainers. If we are bringing in outside trainers also to work with our teachers, we can use it for upgrades to, we'll still use Aspen. So if we need to do anything through Aspen, if we need to have tools, goal banks, anything like that that pertains to the new IEP, we can use that money. So our training team is currently Christine Lyman, who is the high school chairperson, Kathleen Mancini, who is the middle school and Pine Grove chair, and Joelle Coleman, who is our special ed coordinator, and Amy Mansfield, who is a special ed teacher at the high school, also the high school special ed coordinator. They're conducting the trainings. We've had, as I mentioned, we've had two. We had one in November, one in December. We will have two more trainings before the end of the year. And then we are hoping to do a training in August before we start next school year. And next school year, we'll be just focusing on the new IEP. We'll roll it out as the annuals or reevals come up. So if a student has a reeval first, then the new IEP will be used at the reeval. So we'll slowly change over. So we'll still have access to the old IEPs in Aspen. We are also doing parent sessions. So February at CPAC, February 6th, we'll be doing an in-person parent session. And then we're going to offer a virtual also on February 27th. And then we're hoping to also offer a session over the summer before school starts. And then we can just get feedback from the parents to see how it's going. We can always do something next year. And you can view that IEP online on the department's website. You can view the new. So the new IEP that's on the department's website, I should say, is not the format how it looks in Aspen. We actually are able to access it now in Aspen, so it has all the components that the department has in their IEP, but it now is rolled over into the IEP in Aspen. Are there any questions about that? Yep.
Shannon, can you just tell us, like, what the major changes are? Give us an
Yeah.
idea.
It's more student-driven, so it starts out with the vision right away, but it includes the student in the vision. Even at the age 3, they're asking for you to talk to students, see what they want to be when they grow up. So all the components are more student-driven. It really focuses on the student and the parent giving input. It also encompasses a lot of things, like we have to do 688 referrals for students who are in the high school. That wasn't part of the IEP before. It's now part of the IEP. So before we had just kind of pieces everywhere that you had to pull together. Now most of it is encompassed in the IEP. For the I definitely like the format in the new IEP, the form. From the feedback from teachers, they seem to like it. It's just getting to know, how you're running your meetings and things like that. It'll take time, but everybody's jumped right in and. Yep.
So is it 2026, 2027 school year that it will be totally finished and everybody will be on the new
No,
format?
this school year, there are schools that are piloting it. So next year, you mean for students?
Students, yeah,
Yep,
at
yes,
some point
sorry.
you're going to essentially retire the old form.
Yep,
I was
yep.
just trying to figure out when that would be.
Yes, so for students, we will roll it out next year, by the end of next year, moving into the following year, yes, next year's 25, 26, so 20,
So it's
so 25, 26 will
25,
be,
26 is
yeah.
when it's left. Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
everyone should be on the new IEP. So we're currently doing an evaluation of the REACH program at the high school. We started this process last year, collecting data, looking at attendance, looking at behavioral referrals, grades, and through that, with the administration at the high school and the REACH staff, we decided to do a program evaluation to try to determine what things are working, what things need to be changed. So we just chose the high school because the REACH program is so new at the middle school and the elementary level that we did not want to do an evaluation yet of it. So we just did the high school level. It started out with a self-assessment. So the team, the social worker and the 2 special ed teachers they did it on their own. They used a rubric that we gave them, and it identified what they felt were the program strengths and the areas of needing improvement. Then we all came together as a team, and we made a REACH self-assessment for the team. We went through each area, talked about what we thought were the strengths, the areas for improvement. Then we came together again, and we drew up short-term goals and long-term goals, things that we could try to implement this year for change, things that needed to take a little more time. And we are meeting again in January to go over, we wrote up like a comprehensive plan, and we're meeting again to go over and go over through action steps for the self-assessment, or for the next steps out of the self-assessment, what we need to do, what are the next steps that we're going to take for the program. And the feedback, this is the first time we've used this approach to a self-evaluation or to a program evaluation, and the feedback we've gotten from the teachers, they really did like the process and felt that they had a voice, and that it was really great. Everybody was able to voice how they felt, there was discussions about, next steps, about strengths, weaknesses, and so as we move forward, we will start to use this process for our other district programs. Any questions? Yep.
I was just going to ask, is there an effort to gather outside feedback as well?
That will be part of the next steps, yeah. Through the self-assessment, we will probably out of that gather feedback from students, from staff, and from parents.
Okay.
Through the self-assessment, we would find out what kind of questions we want to ask in those surveys.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. And we started using the KTEA, which is a new achievement test. We used to use the Woodcock-Johnson. So it's more comprehensive. It digs deeper into reading, into math. So that has been a change for the special ed teachers also. They've done an amazing job. Instead of paper, we started doing it on iPads. So that's been a big step for all of us. But through each PD that we've had, we've given the special ed teachers. So we had a PD in August. Then on October 6th, we did a PD of the KTEA. And then moving forward, we've just, at the new IEP trainings, we've given the teachers an hour to kind of do self-guided, whether you want to write reports, whether you want to practice on the iPads, do some, they also have training, self-paced training that you can do. So we've been doing it slowly. Some teachers are just giving it for the first time with the students, and it's taking a longer time than it usually does. But by the end of the year, we will all be switched over. All of our assessments will be from the KTEA. That also plays into our new IEP when developing goals, because on the new IEP, the goals have to be measurable. You have to identify how you're going to collect the data, the tools you're going to use. You have to start with the student baseline and have data from your testing and analyze that data. So the KTEA will help us with that. We will also do another training in March with our Landmark outreach. The Landmark uses the KTEA. So Ann Larson, who we work with from Landmark, the consultant, is going to come in with a colleague and help us now to analyze it. So now we've learned how to give it. Now we need to learn how to better analyze the scores and what do they mean for instruction and goals. So that will be also our focus throughout next year. And the last is the Essentials program. So we have an Essentials program at the middle school and the high school currently, and we found that there was a need for one at the elementary level. It wasn't an area that there was a cohort at PGS that fit the profile. Last year, we had placed a student out because we didn't have a program at the elementary level. And then this year, we had another student who, we were looking for a better placement, and that student had the profile. And Nicole LaPerriere worked with us. She was excellent. She stepped up and worked with us and Melissa Goldner to kind of help that student visit the school, ended up going to the school, and now we are working together to create the profile for the elementary level and determine what's needed for the program. So we will have that program from the elementary up to the high school. And Joelle's working with them, and Joelle meets with our in-district programs monthly. So she is starting to pull in Melissa and the staff from there to try to align those programs. And you can find, there's we don't have a program description for that level for elementary yet on the website, but you can find on the website, you can find a profile of a student who fits the Essentials program.
So Shannon,
Yes.
are you piloting it in Pine Grove first and then putting it out into the other 2 schools? Or is this something that you're going to be working on establishing the program in all 3 elementary schools?
So this would be a district program, so it would be a matter of, it's housed at Pine Grove, just like we put the REACH program, and then we have the TLC at Newbury, so it will be housed at Pine Grove, and we have a referral process right now that Joelle oversees. So if a student has the profile and a team feels that they need Essentials, then they make a referral, and Joelle oversees the process, and we determine, is this student appropriate for the program? And then we provide transportation and all that to that program.
Does anybody else have any questions about?
I was going to ask, Shannon and I were talking about what to present, and Shannon could fill up 72 pages worth of information about all the various programs under her purview. So are there other areas that you would like to hear about? Obviously, here's some specialized programs and some updates, but whether now or individually, if there are certain items or programs or 504, is there some kind of purview there or something within Shannon's purview that you would like to hear more about? Just let us know, and
Yeah, absolutely,
Shannon loves talking about that
for
stuff.
sure. I
I
can
think
fill you
this is
in.
great that you included staff and everything to help create a program. And I think if you have that, people feel more obliged to own it when you're having them be part of the process.
Absolutely.
And I think this is great, these different programs and a new KTEA. I would like to, for future, if the testing that goes into dyslexia, I don't know if it's that particular one, KTEA, is that one, or is it a separate one?
So the KTEA is what we use for special education for achievement testing. It's not the dyslexia screener,
Okay.
but it does have a dyslexia index. That's one of the reasons we picked it. So we can screen, so when we give this, if we give the dyslexia index, it will tell you where kids are K through 3 and then 3 through 12, if they're at risk for dyslexia.
Yeah, and that's huge to
Yeah. Woodcock Johnson didn't have that, so,
yeah, to identify those students early is huge.
yep.
But thank you, these programs look great. Does anybody have anything else? Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
The next item is the DCC meeting update. The last DCC meeting was canceled because we didn't have any new updates to give to our towns, so we only like to have the DCC meeting when it's beneficial for everybody. The next meeting will be January 25th. The next item is the Cell Overlay District. Superintendent Forget is going to provide background on a potential town of Newbury Cell Overlay District that could involve the Triton property.
Thank you. So I was approached by Martha Taylor, who is the town planner for Newbury, and Kristen Grubbs, who is the assistant town planner. If you try to use a cell phone in the town of Newbury-Byfield, you know it's not great, depending where you go. So this campus is a dead spot and surrounding. As they've been reviewing, I don't know their formal process, but as they review offerings within the town, they had a study completed that assesses the signal across the town. Our campus was identified as a spot that would be beneficial for this section of town in providing coverage. So they approached me to see if that would be of interest. The cell overlay district is the first step in a process. It just allows a cell company, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, to approach the district to say, hey, we would like to put a tower on your property. We think it would be beneficial. So it wouldn't be a cost to the district. Quite the contrary. It could be a revenue generator if we chose to do that. This first step in the process is literally just that. It allows a company to reach out to us and say, we like your piece of land. So if you look at the aerial of our properties, obviously this campus, it wouldn't be close to anything, buildings or playing fields, so it would likely be out at the end, almost into the marsh, would be the likely spot that would work on this main campus. The other opportunity would be, we own the land off of Elm Street, where our leaching field is. We treat on-site, pump up School Street, then up Elm. So that, I don't remember the exact acreage, 20-ish, some odd acres. We've looked at that over the years as sellable for a developer. It was the original site that the Barry looked at for Caldwell Farms, and obviously that was a much bigger property and more suitable, so it didn't land there. Few years ago, we looked at that again, met with Barry to see, is it sellable? There's some use there. It's not a huge revenue generator, so we have to keep some of that because it is part of our wastewater treatment plant, but that would obviously be a much more beneficial spot. It's largely wooded, and it would be almost non-impact. There would be very few people that would be able to see direct line of sight to the tower. So all that to say, this first step is allowing us to just be part of that discussion. They have to bring it to a town meeting vote. They're planning to do that this spring. I said I will bring it to the committee to see if you want a formal presentation, we can do that. If you want to take a formal vote, we can do that. Tonight I wanted to start the discussion. You don't need to take a vote. There isn't anything official that's happening other than allowing the town to put our name on a map that says part of an overlay district. Anything that would happen from there forward, my understanding is once that happens, that gets the attention of the T-Mobiles, Verizons, and AT&Ts, and then we would likely see some level of inquiry to study and propose a tower somewhere on the property. We don't ever have to say yes. Us becoming part of the overlay district does not insinuate, it does not imply, it does not guarantee or require us to do anything in the future. If we are vehemently opposed to it, I would say, yeah, let's not be part of the overlay district. But unless we are here saying, no, we absolutely don't want to even consider it, it's just a simple, yes, you're okay with me, just giving them the nod to say, yes, let's put it on the town meeting agenda. Questions, thoughts?
Does anybody have any questions for Brian? Go ahead, Paul.
I'm just
Brett?
curious. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
How would it generate revenue as far as that goes? Would it be-
So it would be when one of the providers installs the tower, they're in essence leasing the space from you. So my understanding is depending on the tower that's approved, 40, 60, 80 feet, the number of antennas that could go on it, we then can dictate what that revenue is within reason. So if it was a large tower and all the providers were putting multiple antennas on there, my understanding is we would have more revenue possibility, less so if it wasn't desirable. So if you look at the maps of current dead spots in this area and then the proposed that the consultants do to map out where the antennas would go, I think this campus is more ideal, the main campus. It's more problematic to find a spot that's, I think it's either 90 or 100 feet from any structure or usable space. that spot across the street on Elm Street is definitely still quite desirable, was the description. So,
So Brian, if there was revenue generated, would that go to us, the school district, or to the town?
correct, it would go to us. Yep. So that would be, if we got to that point and a company came in and said, yes, we, Verizon, want to throw a tower on your property, we generate the agreement, we set the cost, they pay us, that's obviously multiple votes of the committee. And then that revenue would go into a revolving account, and it would be at the control of the committee. I'm sure there's a very specific type of revolving.
Yeah, it would be dictated by
Yeah,
Mass General Law.
yeah.
What's the negative, like, what would be the negative?
What would be the negative? I think there would be some people who would stand here and argue that there is science to say that there is danger in electromagnetic, I'm not going to get the right term, radio waves. It seems to not be a phenomenon that's catching on quickly, but I have certainly most recently been approached by some people who would like to do presentations on the dangers of even Wi-Fi access points. So, yeah.
Something to consider.
Something to consider. And again, if you were vehemently opposed to it now, I would say, let's not do this. If we're not vehemently opposed, I would say, let's become part of the district and have that discussion. They may never come forward, right? I mean, it may be on paper, the consultants the town used showed our property as a very beneficial spot. T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T may not agree. They might be already in talks with other areas where they, so.
What kind of revenue are we talking about?
Millions of, no. I don't know the exact answer to that, and that would be something, certainly, it could be tens, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I know someone that was approached probably 20 years ago, and it was about $4,000 or $5,000 a month,
Yeah.
20 years ago.
A lot of factors, but yes, it's not, I would say it is definitely not insignificant dollars. That would all be, if we say, yes, let's be part of the overlay district, and if we're approached, those numbers materialize very quickly. Long before you would take any vote to sign a contract, you would know full well how much, how we're going to record it, and for what purposes those can be expended.
I mean, I don't think there are any negatives, major negatives here that I'm seeing. There are no negatives to being put in the district at all. So my vote would be to put it, say to the town of Newbury, yes, please include us on that district as part of that vote.
Okay.
I would agree with Narissa, just leaving your option open is not harmful. Because there's no decision made, it's just options open, and everything else can be figured out if it comes to fruition.
We like revenue. Do you want to take a formal vote, or no, you're just cool with everyone seems to like the idea of being able to say yes or no later on?
Is there anybody who opposes it?
Yeah, there it is. I will communicate. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the MASC conference update. Committee member Paul Mayette and Superintendent Forget attended the MASC conference last month, and they will provide us an update.
All right, so at the conference, I tried to center most of my time on the DEI sessions, since that's been a big part of our goals for the past few years. I thought it was very well presented in that as I went through session after session sequentially, it seemed to follow the path that you might take from the very beginning of a project towards the end of the project. So it was nice to hear from schools that were in different stages of looking at some of the work we've been doing. Biggest takeaway that I got from all of that was that the process is the most important part, and going about the process in the right way. Up to now, when it's come to equity, I've been kind of guided by the question of whose comfort are we centering? Are we centering the comfort of, those who might be oppressed, or the comfort of those who aren't ready to begin the process? And that's kind of haunted me because, in going slowly, we know the answer there. But while I was presented with a lot of actionable ideas at the conference, what I can say is that to a person, everybody who spoke about this topic made the importance of doing things right rather than doing things quickly. So that really kind of, you hear something that many times, you kind of reevaluate position, and I definitely reevaluated mine. So on the topic of equity, it seems, looking at these, that we're headed in the right direction. We've begun an evaluation process. We've got our plans for a community survey. Those are two of the important first steps that districts were presenting to us. And we talked about, expanding into a full equity audit. One thing that came up was the idea of including alumni to seeing how they're prepared for going out of this community into other places. The question that came up a lot is, are we preparing students not just for life in the school, but to be able to go out and wherever they land, if they're in New York City, if they're in Atlanta, wherever it might be. Going through my notes, the most salient points that I heard were engage anybody who might be hesitant early in the project. And I think we've talked about that with, building projects and things like that. Find where the objections are and work with people rather than having things get torpedoed at the last second. Not to make things specifically about one issue, not to make it about race, not to make it about sexuality, but making it belonging is bigger than that. Belonging is everybody being part of the community. Having a clear and visual way to track progress. They talked about dashboards, which one of the nice things we talked about the group we're working with is kind of the dashboards that would be available to us, so that's great there. A 5-year plan with the intent that after year 3, you're looking at it and seeing, okay, it's time to alter this a little bit. A lot of emphasis was placed on the idea that changes with belonging will have to happen before it leads to academic results. And another key thing that I walked away with is, to anyone joining the school committee, school community, and I guess the committee too, sending that message, welcome, you belong, how can you make us better? So that recognizing this idea that everybody has the opportunity not just to belong, but to improve what we're doing here. A big part of this was the key speaker of the conference was Dr. Darnissa Amante-Jackson. Brian spoke about her ahead of time as being a very powerful speaker. He did not oversell it. She was incredible. She did an amazing job of first demonstrating an understanding of the challenges that school committees face, and then challenging the people in the room with their own biases, their own, kind of inherent bias as well. Big takeaway from her talk was how to communicate clearly, particularly with people who are hesitant. She talked about using the SCARF model and the idea that people aren't against things, people are afraid of change. And it talked about different things that people might fear and how to work with them and how to kind of allay those fears rather than arguing with them, but making them understand that, their fears might not be as terrible as they might be. So I thought that was great. And then the final piece, attending the delegate assembly, was fascinating. It was a lot like a small town meeting. At one point, we were at a spot where there was an amendment to the amendment to the amendment, and I was starting to lose track, but we talked about some of the things ahead of time. Resolutions that passed, resolution in favor of pushing, and again, all these were for MASC advocacy, not anything with, any teeth in the end necessarily, but resolution in favor of full stable funding for METCO, resolution in favor of investigation of transportation bidding procedures. I can tell you that had no discussion or debate whatsoever. Everybody was on board there. A resolution in favor of seeking an increase in the MSBA cap. We'll just table that idea for now. And a resolution to amend MASC bylaws to have resolutions removed from the platform after 3 years so that it doesn't get particularly messy. For the resolutions that might have interested us but didn't pass, one was a resolution for districts, regional districts to charge for transportation. That had a lot of debate, but was ultimately failed, mostly on concerns that it would unfairly affect people who couldn't pay, and wasn't fully implemented and thought out. And also the resolution that would recommend hiring of DEI coordinators. That was tabled after a number of amendments and arguments. Basically, they were trying to get a language to a place that would allow for some measure of flexibility, and nobody could quite get there. So most of the other ones were tabled and didn't come back. So that was it for the conference. Seems like we're on the right path right now.
You want to share anything, Frank?
I won't add a lot other than I was so thrilled to have Paul get to hear Darnissa. And then I actually was late. I ended up tied up in some meeting or something and came in halfway through. And he was just like, yes. So I know we're not in a spending mood these days, but I mean, if we were to ever find the funding for a consultant that has impact, she is unbelievable. She's very expensive to bring in, but I've not spoken to a single district that has worked with her directly that hasn't seen profound impact and change in the way they operate. So not to say that I'm proposing any new money, I promise, Kyle. So, and then, yeah, I would say that there are some things at that conference, it's the joint conference, but there are some things that end up getting kind of redone from previous sessions with superintendents. But overall, I think it was a worthwhile time. Yeah.
Thank you both. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Forget is going to review his report.
So taking you through, I have a couple items that didn't make the report that just have popped up. Obviously, a glaring one today. So for Parent Square implementation, as we have rolled it out, you're now receiving, as committee members, as parents, you're receiving emails through the system. Those of you who have ventured to figure out how to download the app, we haven't sent out the instructions. You don't need to be. All you're getting is emails now. But for those who have ventured out, are receiving alerts in the app. They're receiving texts. They're translating it into their preferred language if they want to. We have not pushed that out to families yet. One of the things we found is the system has incredible capabilities, but it also has a lot of customization. So whether it's posts coming out from a school with the district header to posts that are being sent erroneously or being sent from a person rather than a school. We're working through all those processes, getting better every week as communications are going out. The goal was to have all communications going out through the system by January. We've taken a step back. We're identifying a group of classes at every school, as well as athletics, and then also English learners, English learning families, because of the benefits of the app to be able to translate both posts and two-way messaging into the preferred language. So we're targeting some specific areas, as well as a handful of classes and teachers at every school to work through all the tweaks. This syncs with Aspen, so it automatically pushes. There are classes and sections at the high school and classes in homerooms at the elementary school. There are sports teams, all those things that are set up, create those groups in Parent Square. So we'll have a new group starting in January into February, moving into called the educator level, I would say, rather than school or district-based, actually educators communicating with families and students, and then expand and expand so that by the start of next year, there will be nothing that isn't communicated solely through Parent Square. I think athletics is one area that I mentioned we're targeting. We have coaches who are not Triton teachers. They tend to, as much as we say, please don't give out your personal email, please don't give out your personal cell, the first thing they do is give out their personal email and their personal cell. Getting better on the emails. Cell phones is still a problem. So pushing over the course of the winter season into the spring season so that all student athletes and coaches are using this system. Again, just by way of it allows you to choose texting as a methodology, and it pushes the texts in through the Parent Square platform. So I could still choose to use my native Android or Apple app, SMS texting, but it's pushing it back through the system. So it's archived, it's traceable, it's all the things we need it to be. So still on track, taking our time rather than rolling it out to every classroom across the district and trying to figure out and iron out all those kinks across the whole district, taking it in chunks so that we can do it well and effective. Musical, Linda, you mentioned it. I will note again that it made it to the commissioner's weekly bulletin. I believe that might be thanks to a friendly elf Erica Champagne, who was on the SES and high school counselor. Her daughter is a sophomore, was in the show. I saw an invite. She invited the commissioner to the show, all kinds of people. No one showed up, but certainly they pushed it out in the weekly bulletin on Monday night from the commissioner, so that was great to see. The picture that I included here, the picture that they shared statewide, was a great picture, very similar to this. This picture I love. Thank you, Paul Mayette. This was, I believe, the Saturday show. I was there on Thursday night, Friday, and Friday night. Saturday, obviously, it was a matinee, far more young princesses, and all came, and this is a shot of them all up on stage doing a sing-along. What I kept hearing from everyone is how much it brought the community together, and it was so amazing, whether it was the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders coming over, 500 and, how many buses? It was 12 buses full. All the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders coming over and seeing the show, snippets of it, hearing them talk about it, hearing them talk about what they'll be able to do someday when they come over and be part of the show, and then obviously the Saturday and the Sunday matinee performances with students being here and seeing it. Great, amazing community event. So Natalie Safley is amazing. Craig Kemp, obviously, with the music and conducting. And the student cast and the student crew did just an outstanding job. So, amazing. Project 351, just to note, we have, I believe you all know what Project 351 is. There's one 8th grader elected from every one of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. They spend their 8th grade year working across the state. Hopefully, the majority of those students, many of those students become alumni ambassadors and continue on into high school, into college, come back as consultants. So there are years where the groups are incredibly active and other years where less so, but we did identify 3 new 8th graders. It's Jasania Deneau from Salisbury, Camden Moriarty from Rowley, and Ashley Sullivan from Newbury. So congratulations to them. It was an honor. They're nominated by their teachers and identified, and hopefully we'll see these young civics gurus emerging in the years ahead. SBIRT, again, screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment is what that stands for. This is a required state assessment. It is a one-on-one mental health assessment that is conducted. We had reported to you, Matt Jackling was here in sometime previously, was that October, and talked about the partnership he had literally that day that he came, learned about the fact that we were awarded that grant through the Department of Ed with a partnership with Mass General Hospital. We have an MGH contractor that's come in half-time to be able to work with us both on the administration of the SBIRT as well as the supports and systems that we can place around, whether that's coordinating outside interventions and supports or providing direct services within the schools, licensed clinicians. So that's incredible. Part of that is starting to collect longitudinal data. And so the SURF, the Substance Use and Related Risk Factors Survey, is a MGH tool that is administered as a pre-assessment to all sophomores. So that was administered on December 7th. And again, just to note here, this is with any survey, with any assessment, parents have the right to opt out, so we communicate ahead of time. It was a very small number of people who opted out, which I'm very pleased to hear. So the actual SBIRT administration, as I noted, is a one-on-one. That will start in January and will take roughly a month for that person, that clinician, to get through that screening with the entire sophomore class. Noting here, Whittier has reached out to us to offer their services to see if there are any small-scale projects that they might be able to help us with. We quickly thought about, actually the connection was made through Paul of Counterpart, now at a technical school. And so initially thought about bathrooms. Is that some area that as we wait for the MSBA to pick us, that we address some of the kind of glaring issues in the bathrooms? So there's a coordinator from Whittier that's meeting with John Skanicki, our manager of facilities and grounds, to talk about all the possibilities, what their students have the capability of doing and providing, and whether that be something in the bathroom or if there's another project around this building or any of the 3 elementaries that they might be able to help us with. When we arrive at something, I will share that with you. I'm thinking of things as we go through. Administrative personnel changes. We're not going to talk about it, right? So we have to talk about it. So as we mentioned, Kyle will be leaving us at the end of February. Have I accepted your resignation yet? I think I keep taking back my letter, accepting his resignation. But we wish him the best. He has been a phenomenal addition to our team over the last 4 years. It'll be almost exactly 4 years when you leave in February. He will be with us through, thank you for honoring your contract and sticking with us for a few months. So he will be with us through the entirety of the tentative budget, which is the lion's share of the work to have that first draft document. And I am in the works to find his, not a replacement, but a person who will fill the seat next. I am working concurrently both on a long-term replacement, and if that doesn't work out, I have secured an interim arrangement with a recently retired school business official who worked in a regional school, who understands regional schools incredibly well. So even if that person wasn't to be an interim, he would be an incredible resource for someone that might be coming in that hasn't worked in a regional school or maybe hasn't worked in a school setting entirely. So that is a work in progress. I can now confidently say we will at least have a solid interim if we can't find a permanent replacement by March 1st. We would have an interim from March 1st to June 30th. But there's some candidates also for the long term that have been identified, and so that is a work in progress as well. So best of luck, Kyle. He's not gone yet. He's got a lot of work to do in the next 2.5 months. And then the other to note there is Tim Alberts. He gave notice and actually finished at the end of the fall athletic season. He is staying in education, but is not going to be athletic director anymore. So similar to, I didn't say it out loud, but Kyle is not going to be another business manager somewhere else. It's a change in role because of the demands. Similarly, Tim has taken a step away from athletic directing. He'll be working still in education, but as an educator. So I wish him the best. I was texting Patrick just to see where he was at. Very close to naming a replacement. There's been an ongoing process. Lots of candidates came forward. Shocking. Sometimes you post something and you have no applicants. Other times it surprises you. So 17, what did I write the number down? 17, 18. There were 6 candidates. They came in for an interview with a committee of parents and student athletes and administrators and other coaches. And some, as of today, early yesterday, we had 2 very strong candidates who had come back for walkthroughs. And so that is promising. The hope is that we will have athletic director in place after the new calendar year. We're appointing as an interim. It was posted as an interim. If that person works out, as I noted here, we posted as an interim, we'll appoint as an interim, but we went through a complete process. So the idea is this person would be of the caliber to say, yes, we want you long-term, but it's kind of the perfect world where we get a 6-month test drive. So I'm very confident that one of the 2 that will be chosen, both I think will be excellent and will prove themselves over the next 6 months. And then I'd offer a long-term contract from there. Other things, obviously the personnel report is attached. The network update that was mentioned in the donations. So that's actually, there'll be $5,000 coming from John Weston and $5,000 matched by TEF. It's a $10,000 network upgrade that we gave them the go. What that's going to do is take all of our data, all of our internet comes here in the magic room behind that wall. We currently have servers that operate at gigabit. This is going to upgrade that server, that virtual server, to operate at 10 gigabit. So it's increasing the bandwidth tenfold because our internet, we have it's like 4 gigabit internet service, comes in here, but then pushes out to this whole campus as well as the elementary schools on fiber optics. But the fiber optics can only operate as fast as the hardware on either end. So it's, according to Custom Computer Associates, who manages our network, they said this will be a significant upgrade with speed across the district. So many thanks to John Weston and TEF for matching that. To note, and this is kind of emerging as we speak, Sarah Houghton, who replaced Heather Jones, the Family Communication and Engagement, it's a big, long title. It's an early childhood centered grant that we manage for the Triton District as well as Newburyport. We manage the grant. It's a lot of early childhood and district coordination. Kind of expanded that. Julie Romano, who also resigned, Sarah took on that capacity, and so she's taken kind of a larger community engagement role and has been working with Greg and Megan Ober to extract information out of Aspen for us to start putting together an alumni network. So the idea will be to reach out to all parents, because we don't have, obviously, students have student emails when they're here, but as long as far back as we've been collecting parent emails to say, you know, parent of so-and-so, we would love for you to reach out to your son or daughter. Here's a survey, and start building an alumni network. So they are very engaged around it and very energized. So I'm super excited, because I feel like there's been a lot of fits and starts about starting alumni networks, whether it be a Facebook group or collecting information as students are graduating. So I don't think this exercise will get everyone, but I think it will get a large enough group that word will spread, and I'm hopeful there. So very appreciative of their work. Middle school bathrooms, just so that I believe you probably saw a message that went out similar to last year at the high school, where we were having issues in the bathrooms, closed down bathrooms. The middle school has closed down. They're the 8th grade wing bathrooms, which are the bathrooms at the high school courtyard end. They happen to also be the very, very old and not very pleasant restrooms. So they've closed those down, and all students are using the restrooms that are in the group bathrooms that are upstairs and downstairs in the middle school lobby. So it's central for 7th grade and 8th grade wings. Al worked with Kyle and John to make sure code-wise we had enough fixtures still, and there's still plenty. So there were some issues that started popping up in the bathrooms, and started this. There was some thoughts about how well this would work. We'll try it through the holidays, and as of right now, everyone, whether it's teachers, students, everyone's saying it actually works really well, because kids can just go into the bathroom and use the bathroom and go back to class. The floaters, looking for something to do during class, are cut way down. Students are in classes, engaging and learning, which is where they're most effective. So that's not a permanent decision, but as of right now, it seems to really be working well, and it's still, there's plenty of bathrooms upstairs, downstairs for use. And then the final thing, I forwarded to you the message from the MSBA that we were not accepted again. I did get a call from Diane Sullivan on Monday to explain, and again, just as a refresher, every year we apply, we're prioritized against the applicants that year. So we could be bottom of the barrel one year and top of the heap the next, depending on even if our needs didn't change. So this year, I actually attended the meeting today, 3 hours of virtual discussions. Some big, Boston, Springfield, Fall River, New Bedford, Brockton, Everett, Haverhill. So some places that have buildings that haven't been touched in 56 years, 70 years. And so there were some others that I would debate. We were more needy, but there is also politics involved. So we were not accepted. We will apply again. In the meantime, Kyle and I have been chatting. I think there needs to be we need to seek some additional assistance. I don't believe, we have Habib's report on what the needs are for this building. I keep using this as a joke story, and it officially makes me an old man, I guess, but it's that if you give a moose a muffin, everyone knows that story, right? It's that if you touch this, you have to touch this, and so we know, right? Kyle could give you a list of 20 areas right now off the top of his head that need addressing. And we could say the roof. Maybe it's the roof in the gym that's perpetually leaking. But if you touch that, you got to touch the rooftop unit. If you touch the rooftop unit, you have to touch the controls. If you touch the controls, that's the whole building. And is it a boiler or is it? So I think what we need to do is, whether it's spending money out of capital stabilization, I think we need to engage some consultants to say, we know once we're accepted, we're 5 to 7 years, what could we do to address these most pressing needs that isn't throwing good money away? I don't think there's any easy answers there, and I think ultimately there might be some solution that we have to take that might be throwing away good money. But in the meantime, I think eventually we're going to get to a point where we have to take some steps. So we're not going to stop. Diane Sullivan, I will say, so this year, there were 59 applicants. There were 19 accepted, which means that there were 40 not accepted. We made the cut again, so we didn't have another senior study, but we would have been senior studied, which are the groups that they said it was roughly half. So say it was 30, roughly half said, you know what, not even in the ballpark of need compared to these others. We were in that top half, so say if it were 30, they accepted 19, so we were one of 11 that didn't. Those are my numbers, not the real math. I don't share that math, but so we were close. It just so happened that we were up against some pretty significant need. And so we will apply again. So I actually have a couple emails in, if anyone's ever attended or read about the Mass School Building Authority. Terry Kwan is a former educator, administrator, Brookline School Committee member. She's been on the MSBA board for years, I think decades. Very, very much an educator as she approves these, and talked about the educational program component of the statement of interest. You've talked to some people and they talk about it's just a list of your needs. Just don't put too much into it. She spoke about how powerful and important that educational program is. So I've reached out to Diane Sullivan to ask a little more information, to say, is there anyone that could give us feedback on our statement of interest? Every year they've said, you don't need to change a thing. We get it. I think it's a matter of, they get our need. They have a full understanding, right? They did that senior study last year. They walked stem to stern the whole building, so they know the building. It's just a matter of where does it stack up with everyone else who applies. So we will be coming to you as we go through the next couple months with some plans about next steps to figure out what we do while we're waiting.
Does anybody have any questions? Could I have a motion to receive and file? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The staffing change that you emailed to us with the SEL program and the REACH program, I don't see that reflected in the personnel report. Is there a reason that's not here?
Yes and no. I guess that is a reassignment. So yes, it should be on the personnel report. She didn't, obviously, to just confirm, the change was moving the SEL teacher from the role of being an SEL teacher. She was due to shift to Newbury, I believe, over to the program therapist for the REACH program. That was, it was done anticipating that's likely a change we were going to need to make for next year. It doesn't mean we can't undo it. We talked about that last month. So that technically should. It's not a typical thing to shift. It's not a hire, it's not a termination, so it didn't make the list, but we can make sure it shows up on next month's personnel report.
Could I have a motion to receive and file the October superintendent's report for December 2023?
I make a motion to approve the, hold on, hang on a second. Make a motion to receive and file the monthly report of the superintendent of schools.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the FY24 adjusted operating budget. Each fall, the committee votes on the adjusted operating budget. Director of Finance and Operations, Kyle One, will take us through those changes.
Thank you kindly.
So by process, each fall, we present to you all a adjusted operating budget. In terms of context there, when the school committee adopts the final budget in March, that's obviously 3 months before the start of the fiscal year. So there's a couple of different line items that we budget on a district-wide basis, the most significant of which is going to be the steps and COLAs, the steps for the various union collective bargaining agreements, the cost of living adjustments for those same agreements, as well as our non-union staff. There's the column movement that occurs, and then a couple of other line items. So what we do in this document is take those district-wide lines and reallocate them to the corresponding line item at their respective schools, such as the teaching, instructional staff, non-instructional staff, so on and so forth. By structure, the document has a revenue page, like you might see. It's very similar to the final, the final budget that is adopted in March, but more summarized. There's not the FTE count. There's not a significant narrative at the beginning. Yeah.
I'm not doing my job without Nicole here. So I have printed copies for anyone that would like a printed copy. Would anyone like a printed copy? Thank you.
No offense taken.
Thank you. Can you just give that to Caitlin? Sorry to interrupt, Kyle.
No, not at all. In terms of structure, so starting on page, I won't go through every page here, but on page 1 in the bottom right corner, that's actually named page 3 of the document itself, is that revenue page, an expense summary. And so what's important to highlight here is that this budget has no net change. Revenues remained level, all the same assumptions. Expenditures stayed the same. Assessments to our community stayed the same. So it's purely just that reallocation. On pages 5 and 6 are some nice summaries. They're by different categories. There's a summary by building, location, and then a district-wide piece. And what's key, again, is on the bottom right corner of each of those charts on page 5 and 6 is it shows 0 because purely a reallocation there. And all all salary costs. There aren't any reallocations of non-salary costs in this document. Without going page by page again, the largest piece was that $1.2 million step and COLA line item on the district-wide that we reallocated to each one of the individual schools. Next was a $125,000 line item on the district-wide sheet. And that was because of a school choice receiving shortfall that we projected, and where the amount of funds that we were receiving from other districts was going to decrease by $125,000. Those costs are accounted for in a separate revolving fund. So because our revenue was decreased, we had to shift those costs over to the general fund. That $125,000 was used for a Pine Grove general education teacher and a Pine Grove special education teacher. Again, not an additional position added, just a shift in where that salary was charged to. There's a $150,000 salary contingency line item on the district-wide that we try not to touch each year. Unfortunately, this year, we've had to use the entirety of it. That $150,000 was used for 4 additional IAs that we had to add this year. 3 of those were at Newbury Elementary School and 1 was at the high school. These positions being added weren't a want or a convenient. It was a legally required to. Shannon and myself met with each one of the building principals, walking through the student IEPs, the number of required minutes for each one of those IEPs, and then the schedules of all of the IAs. And it was simply not simply a math exercise. At the end of it, it was a math exercise to say, here's our required minutes, here's staff we currently have available, and there was an additional need there. So that's why we had to add those those 4 instructional assistants, again, 3 at Newbury and 1 at the high school. There, in this document, were also a few reclassifications that occurred. One was just in terms of how we budget ETCs for special education. So there was a shift of a 0.5 ETC from Pine Grove to the district-wide page. That was so we were being more consistent in our accounting, but you could see it pop up in the change. There was also a shift of 1 instructional assistant from Salisbury Elementary School over to Pine Grove. And again, with IAs by structure, if those IAs are assigned to students, so if there's a shift from of a student from one building to another, most typically that's going to be from an elementary level to a middle school level to a high school level. But over at Pine Grove School, there's a specialized program, and a student was transferred over to Pine Grove from Salisbury. So with that student came the 1 instructional assistant as well. So this reclassification, you would see in a reduction of a position in Salisbury and an addition of a position at Pine Grove. I will leave it there. Any questions? At the bottom of each school location, there's 2 pages for each school, are a series of footnotes that describe each of these changes that I think I highlighted all of them. So there's additional detail there, but happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Kyle?
And I believe you said this, but to say it one more time, we went over this in more detail with the finance subcommittee. So just any of our, regular viewers, this isn't just a, hey, we're adjusting a budget and 5-minute discussion. There was far more detail with the finance subcommittee. They beat them up for hours.
Talk debits and credits and everything.
Can I have a motion to approve the FY24 adjusted operating capital budget as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is the policy review, Section A. I will hand this to Paul Goldner.
Probably going to toss this back over to Brian here momentarily, but we've been in policy and advocacy reviewing all of our policies, and this is our Section A. This year we're reviewing Sections A, B, C, and D, and we've completed Section A, and so we have policies with some adjustments here that we are recommending be adopted as a first reading. Brian, do you want to say anything more about any of these?
Yeah, I would just say, so this is, again, part of our process now where we're going to take, I think it's 3 sections per year and go through the manual, although I don't know if we've communicated this, but we got another policy update from MASC. Swear they give us updates quicker than we can get to actually making the edits. So again, I looked at that newest one. There was nothing glaring that would change our practice. We're doing things right. It's kind of catching up with times. But what we tried to do is have a summary sheet. It's titled, I went off the meeting, I went onto the policy manual. It's the PDF titled Policy Manual Review Section A Summary. And so you can see all of the policies and what we did or didn't do with each. So I don't think, unless there's any questions for the subcommittee, I think these are all pretty straightforward, the changes that were made. Working on B now and then C. We decided to bring them section at a time.
Sorry, I'm going to be the one that asks the questions. AB reads really oddly, and I know this is the MASC sample language, but it says the school committee has the dual responsibility for implementing statutory requirements pertaining to public education and local citizens' expectations for the education of the community's youth. It also has an obligation to determine and assess citizens' desires. I am unsure what that second sentence means, because it feels like a duplicate of the end of the first sentence that's even less like specific about what it should be. It's AB, yeah. It's literally the first two sentences. And I did double check MASC sample, and this is exactly the way it reads, and it reads just as bizarrely to me there as it does here.
Another session of obtaining public education and local citizens for the education of their youth. Yeah. That seems redundant. Didn't seem redundant when we were looking at the model.
And it feels like it should be different, like there's a different expectation by putting that second sentence in there, but I can't understand what the different expectation is. You know what I mean? Like, why put it twice and have it be less clear if it wasn't supposed to be something else entirely? I don't know. For us, I would just love to see something that's just, I don't know if.
I mean, so are you saying it's striking that second sentence, right? So it also has an obligation to determine and assess citizens' desires is the redundant sentence. So again, this is a first reading, so
Yeah.
we can drop our glasses off our face. We can bring that back with that struck, if that's the will of the committee. Easy enough to do.
I'm recalling having debate about this section here, this policy, but it wasn't there. We were looking at other things, so happy to
Yeah.
strike that.
I think if we could just do that, just so there's some clarity in there, because it
Yeah.
feels unclear
I hear-
just by adding it.
I hear what you're saying. So,
All right, thank you. Is what?
So I'm guessing it's in there, because this is how it reads in the MAS, when I looked at it, right? This is the exact same. So I guess they're saying there's a difference in meaning between the words expectations and desires. Like, that's all I can think of to have both of them in there, right? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I just don't know what the desires are for if they're
No.
not the expectations of the education of the community's youth.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but when I read it the first time, I was just assuming
Yeah, and I think
that
that's,
somehow they meant two
It's
different
kind of
things, and I
open-ended the
didn't
way
get
it reads.
right?
Doesn't pertain to educating.
Isn't it kind of weird?
I think it's fair to say, as a matter of policy, the subtle difference between expectations and desires, probably not relevant to a policy. Yeah, going to go with that.
Honestly, I just
like
always
the strike.
assume I'm missing something when stuff like that happens in policy, like, what did I miss?
It's a you
or you
problem.
missed that we were talking about how we were going to phrase the citizens sentence.
Is this a difference between needs and wants, and we're just using different terminology? Expectations is needs and desires is wants?
I guess, but it doesn't even say like it's talking about the people in their school district, but it doesn't even say the desires are about the education of the youth. Like, I'm not sure if it was supposed to mean something else. If we can send it back to policy, I mean, that's totally fine with me. I'm okay approving it as a first reading. I just think it needs some clarity.
So I guess the question is, does it have to go back to policy, or can it just come back? Because I think, right, so policy subcommittee does their review, takes MASC recommendations. I think we can solidly say MASC recommendations aren't always the best, solid, whatever descriptor you want to put in there. And so it can just be a discussion here. Unless people feel like, I would think if we want to say, I'm not liking the intent of that policy, kick it back to the subcommittee. If it's, we all feel like that's a redundant sentence, let's strike it. I say, let's just do it now, and then we'll bring it back to you struck and keep it moving forward. We're going to review these sections.
Yeah, if there is an intent in having that in there, again, I'm not sure what it would be. I don't know if anybody else has any insight on what that could be, but otherwise I would say, yes, strike it, the second sentence.
I'm seeing nods. If you need a thesaurus to write policy, we have a problem, right? yes, the answer to the question in your mind is yes, you're overthinking it.
Okay, the way, make a motion to approve the edits to the policy manual, Section A, as presented as a first reading. Do we have to say?
presented and amended, because you officially.
Presented and amended as a first reading.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? I almost forgot. Okay, the next is policy edit file DJ, DJA, and DJE. I will hand this to Paul Goldner.
Take that one too, Paul.
We brought these 3 policies in November, and we received a first reading on them. We are looking for a approval as a second and final reading on these 3 policies. Brian, do you have anything more to say?
No, I think nothing to add. They're very, we had just edited these, and there were little other tweaks. So we looked at them again.
Are they on the list again?
Are they on the listing? Oh, the newest? I don't believe these 3 are. This was, yeah, so policy D, section D is finance, and that's a Tracy Novick thing. And so she went through, I think, attempting to put a regional voice into some of them, which is helpful. And I think there's some Worcester voice in some of them. But I think these changes make sense, but I don't believe in the latest, this week's edit memo, there are any.
Make a motion to approve the edits to the policies DJ, DJA, and DJE as presented as a second and final reading.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Certainly, Paul.
On policy DJ, it's contrary to what DJ? It's contrary to what my understanding is, where it says the superintendent has been stricken at the bottom, and it says the school committee will designate.
So
The district's chief purchasing officer, I mean, we hire and fire the superintendent and maybe the school nurses, but
So this is designating, not hiring, right? So
Okay.
you by policy set the role, currently determined to be Director of Finance and Operations.
Okay.
As those 2, but you also do approve the appointment of, so you hire and fire me, you have to approve the appointment of, on my recommendation, of the business official, the person involved in special education, the school nurse, and the district treasurer.
Who's the chief purchasing officer?
Currently, until February
Why
20.
do we use that language and not the school business?
So that's the statutory definition.
Oh,
Our chief, so like MCPPO certification, Kyle holds that. So someone, not if, we get accepted to the MSBA, you have to have an MCPPO. It's that chief procurement officer, or chief purchasing officer, that is that designated role. So that's statutory.
thank you.
My understanding was that there was a lawsuit that involved this and grants with some district. I can't remember which district it was. And it essentially is forcing the update because MASC's policy was contrary to state law.
Mention that.
Should also state here, you all received an email from an individual a few months ago. I think that went to the full committee. Yep. That we did review that was stating that our policy was out of compliance. It's not. So just to confirm that.
All those in favor? Subcommittee reports, policy and advocacy, Paul Goldner.
We did not meet this month due to the Salisbury Winter Concert tonight, and the fact that there's something basically every night in December, so we're meeting next in January. We're currently ahead of our projected schedule on our policy review, so.
Finance, Susanna is not here, but has finance met?
We meet monthly to do the routine business. Last month was over the,
Wait, so do you mean,
I'm sorry.
Good, she's talking about personnel. I know she did.
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
okay, so finance news hasn't really, we met 2 weeks ago. The news, remains somewhat bleak. The spending freeze is still in place. And while, Kyle and Brian both lauded the ability of the staff to make some creative adjustments to deal with that, it's tough when you're, using the creativity is in that way. Cost drivers haven't changed. Biggest challenge being private out-of-district tuitions. These are chewing through the circuit breaker reserves that we managed to build up during the pandemic, so that's unfortunate there. And school choice, we're still waiting on numbers sometime this month. One other item that came up was a slight lag in collection with preschool payments, and that letters have been sent out to families that have not kept current with those. So that's about it. We meet next on the 21st.
Thank you, Paul. So personnel negotiations has,
can I add one more thing with finance? And this is just because it's going to become, it hasn't gone to the finance subcommittee. So we're members of the North Shore Consortium and Crest Collaborative. I'm a board member of both. We are meeting, have an information meeting again tomorrow and another vote next week. So the consortium, North Shore Consortium, is dealing with an HVAC issue. One of their schools, the building at 12 Sawyer Road, the Kevin O'Grady School, which is severely disabled students, medically fragile. We're talking like you need air conditioning, you need heat. The systems have been failing. It's been kicked down the road since a report was done in 2009. So none of the 20 board members sitting around the table, nor the executive director or finance person. So it's been kicked a few times during my tenure. Didn't realize the severity. It was a project that started as estimated to be a $3 or $4 million HVAC project. It has become, in order to do that, if you give a moose a muffin, it's going to be an entire electrical upgrade and a new roof and a couple other 4 new boilers. So it's become what was estimated to be a $10 million project, which with bids ballooned to $14 million and has been value engineered back down to about 12.8. So it addresses all of the capital needs of that building. So as a member of that consortium, we, as a board of 20 superintendents, have been debating how best to allocate the needs to make up that cost. There needs to be a one-time assessment to replenish about $2 million in stabilization that they'll, it's called surplus in a collaborative. It's in essence, it's excess and deficiency. They are truly an outside entity, so they literally do need to carry 3 months' worth of reserves. So Kevin Mahoney, who is also our treasurer, is the treasurer for the consortium. And so they've been working through all the possibilities of how to address this. And it's going to likely be a one-time assessment that in working, Larry, who's the finance director there, has been working with Jay Sullivan, the Department of Ed, to figure out a way to bill it through as tuition so it can become circuit breaker reimbursable, because all of these kiddos are at that threshold already, as well as potentially, depending on what programs within the consortium, an 8 to 14% increase in tuitions. So for us, we have 10 students currently, 2 at the Kevin O'Grady, the others are at the upper and lower school. So the tuitions will impact us. That won't be the greatest impact. The options being discussed to recoup that $2 million cash shortfall are, we're all in this together. We all pay $100,000 apiece. That has not been generally well supported. The other option is go straight on a student enrollment, and you've got, and this is all public information, you've got Tri-Town School Union getting a $15,000 assessment, and the Peabody Public Schools getting a $372,000 assessment. So that felt a little, we're not in this together. So I think where it will land is some kind of, and we're doing an information session tomorrow and then a vote next week, some type of kind of threshold bands to say if you're 0 to 5 students, this will be your assessment, 5 to 10. So my guess is our assessment will be in that $60,000, $65,000 range. Again, if, I don't think we can, right? We were talking about, is there a way to get it billed this year so we can get reimbursed in circuit breaker next year? In any other year, yes, we'll spend that out of circuit breaker. This year, probably not. So still figuring out exactly how that timing will be, but it will definitely hit fiscal '25, and we'll certainly, as we're going through the process and making our budget presentations, we will account for that. But because that's being discussed publicly, it's kind of literally evolving day by day, but I just wanted to make sure you were all aware of that. I think it's becoming a very heated discussions in some cities and towns. I don't think it needs to be for us. I mean, I don't like it. I wish the decision was made and the problem was resolved, whatever that is now, in 2009, 2010, 2012, when the cost would have been minimal. But it is what it is. They've reviewed, should we sell the building and move the programs and all the options? This is absolutely the most cost-effective option. So just to make sure you are aware of that, so you're not caught off guard in case. I don't believe anyone has ever come to you with a consortium question, have they? But in case they do, you are aware.
Does anybody have any questions? Personnel negotiations. Suzanne is not here. I don't know if the,
So we actually have a meeting on the books with the cafeteria workers on Monday. So the subcommittee had authorized myself and Kyle, and actually involving Sarah Littman. She knows her stuff, so she'll be with us at the table and having a first discussion, likely get right down to details. It's a very small group. It's those of you who've been involved in negotiations when we're talking with the Teachers Association or IAs, it's representing a much larger group. This is a much smaller group. And I will say this publicly, this is the last group for us to meet with to address very low starting wages. So it is something that we have with the universal free meals. It has provided an opportunity for us to address that. It is actually what you see being, I don't know if you've seen those messages coming out of DESE and saying like, we're now funding this, let's fix the programs, let's pay to keep people, let's invest in infrastructure, let's have the right equipment, let's use farm to table and use local providers and not just, big box companies. So that will be our approach.
thank you. The collaborative annual reports, the annual reports from CREST and NEC collaboratives are attached as correspondence for your information. And the next item is adjournment. So before we adjourn, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hopefully you have a safe and happy holiday. And as always, it takes a village to do all of this work that we do, and I appreciate everything that everybody does. And can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Have a nice evening.